Well, howdy, howdy, howdy. Hope everybody's doing all right. See, we got Randall here, Jason, Samurai. Let me put the backdrop down. That way you're not having to look at all my stuff in the background. I hope everybody's doing all right. I know I've been out for a while. Been a few health issues and some other personal things that had to be taken care of. So things are kind of calming down a little bit. The virtues of getting old, I guess. Well, I got the link for the panel here, so if anybody wants to come in and be live, they can. Randall said he's at work. Jason's at work too. Hey, Gaston. How you been doing? Oh, hey, Chris. Andy. He said he's on his way. And here's Randall.
Hey, what's happening, Johnny?
Not a whole lot. Just making time.
Yeah, I'm waiting to hear back from rail crew to see if I'm going to be done or not. This trip they put me on, it's showing me having multiple trips, but I don't know if these guys are going to be a one and done job or if they got to go back and get a second train. So they're actually down there. I dropped them off at Bono, Arkansas. So they're coming north. They've got NS 8025 as the leader. So probably a lot of your viewers know what engine that is. So Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I figured you'd be working tonight. Hey, Robert, how you doing? He just popped in. Hi, Chris. Don't be starting nothing.
this train you're looking at now is a coal load, is southbound. I'll show you the second unit here. So right there's the second unit on that train behind the leader.
Yeah.
So been having quite a few of these executive units running around. So uh, I've seen 3 already today. So
Huh.
this will actually be number 4. So actually, this is actually four executive max I've seen today.
I probably just want to get them out and exercise them a little bit.
Yeah, probably there's a Santa Fe War Bonnet -9 that I think may have just come out of storage. Man, that sucker looked rough when I passed it at Bono yesterday.
Yeah.
I went to Memphis yesterday and come back and it was sitting there on the head end of a vehicle train. And I tell you what, Johnny, she looked like she was used up, man. I mean,
Rode hard and put away too many times.
oh yeah, if I had to guess, I'd say they yanked that sucker out of storage too. just by the way it looked. I mean,
well, you let
I
them
thought,
sit. That's
yeah,
what makes
I
the
thought,
maintenance go up.
yeah, when I first saw it, I thought it was one of those old Santa Fe engines that still had the full Santa Fe name on it, but it was a BNSF warb on it. So, yeah, Robert Holloman, that is BNSF 9756 for anybody that's keeping score.
Hmm. What's the usual crew? 3 people?
It's 2 people here for the most part. Now, this crew I took to that NS train was a 3-man crew. So, um, this train that I'm working with now, that's coming out of Bono, is one of the NS run through trains. So, it's going to have all NS power on the point. So,
Yeah. All right, Andy, keep putting the quarters in, get the camera working. Well, there it comes. What's going on, Andy?
Yeah, there we go. Hey, Johnny, how are you? Randall?
I'm doing all
hey,
right.
what's happening, Andy?
Oh, no complaints, I suppose. I mean, it's Thursday. I had plenty on Monday, though.
Yeah. You using a camera on the laptop or something?
No, this is just the computer. This is just the crappy computer that's here. And then I've got
Oh,
that
okay.
desk computer. And let's see.
I just want a video
I've
wasn't
got,
quite as good.
yeah, that's kind of that crappy PC camera or whatever that I kind of hate. Uh, I've got multiple, though. And, and my downshot camera. Um, and
That
that's
one's
just
not
my
pretty good.
PC camera, which this one's a little bit better camera, I think.
Well, it's about the same as
This
that
one's a little
other
bit
one.
better.
It's about got your
Honestly, I
face
think
blurred.
the biggest problem, yeah, the biggest problem I have generally is just the internet connection is crap because I'm in Kentucky. But I have ordered a new internet connection. I ordered a 2 gigabit connection from the company that the power company is working on an internet, a fiber to the home internet thing. So I don't know when to expect that, but I'm really anxious about a better internet connection
Oh yeah.
because it's got bad. Our spectrum was bad several years ago, and it's done nothing but get worse. So,
Yeah, spectrum around here is not all that great.
oh, it's awful here. I mean, we were the biggest problem we have is what causes the video to be so bad. I had bandwidth, like we could watch, Netflix or HBO or whatever over the internet. That's not too bad. It's these high demand interactive things. I mean, playing video games would probably be bad. I don't play video games, but
Yeah.
um, but anything that is sensitive to latency, like video and stuff. I mean, we have normally 50 millisecond latency, which is bad. You start having problems with this stuff at 70. But in the last year and a half or so, basically since we had the tornado that did so much damage and it ripped out a bunch of stuff, we've been running 100 millisecond latency all the time, which is, I mean, not exactly satellite, but it's close to as bad as satellite for internet,
Yeah.
which hurts my video quality. There's just not much I can do about that yet. So I hope
Yeah.
that improves in the near future.
Got one coming.
Stack train.
Yeah.
Well, somebody like orange. Yeah, Robert likes to pick on me over it. But in my defense about this whole arrangement, it doesn't. This is just a USB camera. There's nothing special about this camera. All the rest of these are HDMI cameras run through an HDMI switcher. I've spent all the money to make all that really well, to make that work well, but I can't get around the fact that fundamentally, StreamYard or whatever still requires the internet to get there. So
It's like he's pulling a pretty long train there.
Oh yeah.
Oh, he had three engines on it, so.
Yeah, these suckers will get up there. They'll get up there around 8,000 to 9,000 feet. So, which ironically, most of them's too long to fit in the sidings here on the north end. There went the end of it, but yeah, they had the other night they had a Birmingham Kansas City train that was, I think, about 8,200 feet long, and they had to cut the south crossing at Koshkonong. So
Robert just said his son Liam is waving at us. We're waving back.
yeah, 8 or 9,000 feet is a pretty long one. That's not being, on Appalachian railroads, for example, that's not been very common for a long time. Late at the end of World War II, they were running some 8,000 to 9,000 foot long trains with a couple 2882s, Y6s on the head end, and a couple of those on the tail end, and running 160 to 160 cars, which was about a 7,000 foot train. But after the end of the war, that stopped, and they went back to running 100, 110 cars max. And just in the last decade have I started seeing that kind of train length.
They've been doing this here for the past 2.5 years, 3 years, really since about late 2019.
Well, you could do more of that stuff in the flatter country too than you can in Appalachia. But I mean, I've seen in the mountains that they're running, longer trains now with DPUs being so common. That started to crank up when the Southern started running radio trains with radio cars, but really all that was experiments. But now that you could get DPU power so distributed, well, they can start running some more significantly longer trains. I think a lot of that comes from precision railroading too. Where they're trying to decrease crew sizes and cut jobs and just trying to figure out how to screw up running a railroad, basically, by most people. Yeah. At least that's what I hear most people say about it. So
yeah, they're doubling these empty coal trains up quite often now. So they don't do it with the lows, but they do it with the empties quite a bit. And the what we call the MEM tolls, which are the Memphis Tulsa trains, they get up over 9,000 feet, sometimes up around 10,000 foot long. And they really struggle on this north half of the Thayer sub because they typically don't have a lot of power on them, and they're very, very heavy trains.
But grade and power is all it is. Robert mentioned, if we noticed, about the number of single cars versus articulated, and I have for the last few years since I moved up into the 80s period. I've spent some time watching Huron Rail and other videos looking for trying to get an idea of what consists look like. How many road freight equipment you had, say on the Norfolk Southern, Norfolk and Western. How many Norfolk and Western equipment did you have versus how many foreign road cars did you have? What's the percentage of that versus this type of freight or that type of freight in this direction or that direction? I tried to start breaking some of that down, and in some of the video, and I've seen other people comment as well, how if you go back into the 90s, for example, you've seen a lot more of the articulated 3 and 5 car sets. But I've noticed several of the rail fans commenting how the vast majority of the trains out there are single unit articulated. I'm sorry, not articulated, single unit well cars. You see a lot of the articulated, Randall, or a lot of the singles as well? Have you noticed?
It's a pretty good mix of both. There's a lot of single well cars and there's a lot of articulates in the 3 and 5 sets. They call them 3-pack and 5-pack cars here, but
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. The crews have told me that the intermodal trains are actually the harder trains to tie down. So
Really?
yeah,
that surprises me.
yeah, they say they have to tie more brakes on the intermodal trains than they do these loaded coal trains. So, because you have one set of brakes per 5-unit car, is what they told me. And when they release the brakes, where this train's actually sitting, it's actually going downhill as it's sitting here in the yard. Just a little bit. You can't really tell it that much, but it's actually going downhill just a little bit because I have watched guys actually tie these trains down, and the engineer will release the brakes, and you actually start to see the train move backwards. So, like I said, a lot of the crews have always told me that the intermodals are actually the harder trains to tie down because you have to walk and tie so many brakes on them.
Well, when you get an 8,000-foot train behind you, it doesn't take much of a grade for things to move around a bit.
Yeah, I actually assisted a train. They would tie like 10 brakes, and they would release the brakes on the engine and move backwards. They tie a couple more, release the brakes, and keep moving backwards. And
Yep.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, the yard that's at the end of the line I model, and I don't currently model that yard. I didn't have enough room, but whenever I could grow the layout, build a building or what have you, and grow this layout in size a bit, I will model that yard. But that yard is on a 1% grade, so they're tying down loaded and empty coal, largely coal, at the end of it's kind of marshalling yard for all the mine runs that all come back to that yard. The yard itself is on a 1% grade. So much so that the Norfolk and Western in the the 40s and 50s switched it with articulateds, with big 2662, 2882 switcher locomotive. And when they re-railed it with 136-pound rail because it's such a grade. It's such a grade that you can't do a brake test without setting a dozen independents, setting a dozen manual brakes before you could even do a brake test, because just to let the air out to do a brake test, you'd slip back down the mountain out of the yard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Up here just north of town, there's a pretty stiff grade that starts, I'm going to say right around milepost 3378, which is technically known as the crossovers up here. But a lot of the guys tell me that grade really slows them down because it runs from there all the way up to Koshkonong is where it tops out at. And they get into the real meat of the hill around milepost 3351, which is basically the end of the yard limits at here to there. So, and it drops to single track. So,
and they weren't getting a run and go. If they were on if they were in yard limits, as they didn't get much of a run and go at the, at the grade. So,
yeah. You saw how fast this train the train that just went by was going. They almost have to get a run at this hill or they won't make it up it. So,
yep.
In some cases.
Yeah, yard limits can be constrained, but they'll have waivers and exclusions for those things so they can get a run and go. The section of the mount I model a helper district on my layout, and on the prototype of that, it's fairly sharp, and it's a 25-mile-an-hour grade or 25-mile-an-hour speed restriction through the entirety of the of the district, but they had a 30-mile-an-hour section for the 5 miles prior to the bottom of the grade as an exception, a speed exception, and not a speed restriction exception, but they could go, but a speed maximum exception, so that they could get a running go at Banner Mountain, which is not very long, but it's 2.6%. So, and pretty curvy. That matters too.
Right.
And I love the grades. I mean, climbing mountains is that's the bee's knees to me. That's the joy of railroading: tunnels and mountains and grades and helpers, and I love that stuff.
You would love the north end of the Thayer sub, Andy, because there's grades all over that section of the line. Because I had told you about the one that starts here at the yard and goes up to Koshkonong. Then there's another at just north of West Plains called Olden, which is another pretty stiff grade. And then you have Willow Springs, Norwood, and then Mansfield. So they're doing a lot of climbing.
Yeah, one after another. That's the man and machine pitted against nature kind of thing about railroading that I'm just in love with that conceptually. And there's railroads that are really interesting just from that perspective. I wouldn't, I'm not that personally interested in modeling the Western Maryland, for example, but the old Western Maryland was such an interesting railroad because they didn't have a lot of money when they built it. So instead of like the Baltimore and Ohio, where they just punched through mountains, the Western Maryland was straight up and straight down. So one of the old Western Maryland engineers said it was everything. He said it never run a locomotive that wasn't in Notch 8. So they would put it in Notch 8, climb to the top of the mountain. As they got half the train over the top, he would drop it back to neutral, kick the dynamics in, put it back in Notch 8, run the dynamics to the bottom of the mountain, back to neutral, drop the dynamics out, put it back in Notch 8 again. That's all he did, up and down the mountains like that, which, is interesting. And as a modeler, to build a model railroad, that's fun. If you were buying the equipment for a railroad or running the equipment, I don't think you'd want to deal with the wear and tear.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to work maintenance on that railroad, let's say.
Of course, now they're dealing with PTC and the trip optimizers now, which basically does the job for them. They say it's actually gotten a lot better in recent years.
Well, in the earliest days, there with all the electronic stuff, there were so many false positives. Let's say, one of the areas that I used to rail fan many years ago around Knoxville, Tennessee, was where the CSX and NS kind of interacted with each other, crossed over. Every time CSX train headed southbound through there, it tripped that emergency brake every time, and the train just slammed to a halt. And it took them several years to figure out what was causing. I don't know what was causing it, but something. Some electronic problem in the detector there.
I've had BNSF crews tell me that when they first started using the optimizer, they said they'd just be going along, just cruising along. And they said all of a sudden it'll just throw the train into dynamic braking. And like I said, that's back in the early days.
Yeah, it took them a while to kind of refine that stuff, and PTC has come a long way, and and it's a good thing it has now that that's becoming the kind of the regulatory standard everywhere. So, yeah, Chris, they're especially exciting with Steam, but everything is especially awesome with Steam. I just wish I could afford to model it.
Kicked me off my wait time. That's what all that noise was.
Looks like another crew van pulled in a while ago.
Yeah, that's actually the extra yard van sitting there. So they've been running pretty good too. I'll tell you what, this is the fullest I've seen the parking lot here in a good long while. I mean, it's pretty packed in here right now. So
busy night then.
Yeah.
I would have expected everybody to be getting busier. We're still trying to, to pick up the slack from the supply chain issues. They're still trying to pick that up. You'd expect that everybody's still kind of working hard trying to catch up.
Yeah, I was just reading kind of the chapter. Yeah, that's kind of one of the fun things about this line. It's got a little bit of something for everybody. You like high speed, flat running, the South End delivers that. If you like grades like Andy does, you go to the North End of this line. So, it's got something for everybody. So,
it's hard to find, as a modeler, it's hard to find a section of rail. I mean, possibly hard to find the section of rail that kind of has all the. I was lucky. I've been lucky to find the section that I like, that I model, that is both interesting operationally, interesting scenically, interesting from a traffic flow constraint. There's just so many considerations if you're modeling a railroad, because you want to model that scenically, but you also want, if you're an operator, you're interested in getting a certain operational. Some of the most beautiful lines to model scenically would not be interesting operationally if you were to operate it the way the prototype does, for example.
Right.
But there are examples, as you say. The hardest thing I find with finding a line to model is finding something that you could shrink, that you could compress, and it still be interesting, and finding something that you can fit into a basement empire or something with any fidelity, with any amount of realism. You're not going to compress people try all the time to compress 150 miles of main line into a basement, and it's just and it's fine, whatever makes you happy, whatever works for you as a modeler, but it's
this line
hard to be believable.
Yeah, this line here, from where I'm sitting here at the depot to Springfield, Missouri, the end of the north end of the third subdivision is 125 miles as you drive.
Yeah.
The south end from there to Memphis is 138 miles, I think, 140 miles, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah. Well, you just got to compress that. People just, we as modelers tend to be like anybody eating at a buffet. You bite off more than you could chew, and I think it tends to work a little better if you focus your interest a little bit. Hey, Bill.
What's up,
Hey,
guys?
Bill.
What's up, Randall?
Oh, we're just sitting here checking out some trains.
Cool.
This one here has been sitting here for about 30 minutes. I guess they're waiting. One's already went through north, and I guess they're waiting on another one. So, yeah, I'm actually looking over at the signals now. I can kind of see them sticking up there, and they're still showing red. So they're not turning them loose yet. So they may be waiting on this train I'm working with. So.
Ken, hello. So, can I do some shameless plugging here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, just to keep you guys out there in MRL land, Model Railroading Live, the #1 model railroading network in the world. Just to let you know, Big Bill, who's Big Bill talking to, is back on track, pun intended. And October 19th, that's a Wednesday evening, 9 p.m., we're going to have Nathan DeLay on the show. You know Nathan, if you know him from his YouTube channel, he's the gentleman that makes engines out of tin cans and gets them to run. And he just recently moved into his own apartment, and he's setting up his own layout. So we spoke to him, and he'd be more than gracious to come on. And then on October 26th, we're going to have a revisit by a good friend of ours, Tina Marie Cowlett.
Coweta.
What?
Coweta.
Cowletta. Okay. Tina Marie from Mojave Model Railroads on the 26th is going to appear. She's not a new guest, but she is a new guest because she's got some new things going on. She's got a new layout. Not a new layout, but a new channel. And, some interesting things are going on with her. So, on the 19th, we got Nathan DeLay. And then on the 26th, the next week after that, we have Tina Marie, Mojave Valley Railroad. If you guys know anybody out there that wants to be on Who's Big Bill Talking To, and if you guys want to be on it, just drop me an email at southbrooklyn@gmail.com. SOUTHBKLYN@gmail.com. All you need is a computer, camera, good audio.
Interesting story.
What's that?
Talking about that right there, Bill.
Yeah, that's the email. If you're interested, please get. If you know somebody who wants to be on the show, or you yourself, hey, listen, we just shooting the breeze here, so just come on out, and if you know somebody that wants to be on, yes, Lynn McCurdy and the HDMMRC. I did say Tina Marie. It's going to be on. I got to check my candy calendar. The 26th of October. I'm sorry, Andy, you were going to say. I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, you're good. I just said all you need is the camera, the video, and an interesting story.
Yeah, you don't need an interesting story. We can talk about boring stuff.
Most people's stories are interesting.
This is true. They are. This is
If
true.
you're into railroading of any kind, we're probably interested.
Yeah, I agree to that. So we're gonna do that.
Yeah, I put mine down for the 20th, so I'll be right behind Nathan the next day.
Okay, good. Back to back.
So, wait a minute.
Anybody affected by this hurricane yet? Down, John, Andy?
Nah, it's gonna miss us.
Yeah, it's way to the east of us where I'm at. So
Last time I
I'd say we
looked,
all get a little.
it was barely going to
ahead,
hit
John.
Savannah, but it's going to cross most of South Carolina and then just a small part of North Carolina and Tennessee.
We've actually got burn bans going on up here in northern Arkansas. So
Yeah, we got that today and tomorrow because of the high wind.
Yeah.
Why does Bill need more sleep, Lynn?
Because I was yawning.
Oh. Oh, Brad Anderson down yonder said, "Hey, Bill and Andy." He popped in just shortly ago.
Yeah, Dwight, they
Oh,
do
right,
look
yeah.
they do look shiny when they're under the lights. So But I can guarantee you this one here has got some dirt on it. So
Dwight just cleaned his glasses. That's the reason why.
in fact, since Dwight just made in, I'll show him his second unit here for anyone that missed it. So right there's the second motor, right there behind this train, or behind this lead motor. So
you're at work, Randall?
I am at work, Bill.
And what is it that you do?
I'm a van driver. I basically haul the crews to these trains here. The crew I'm actually working with right now, they're bringing a northbound Z train in. It's a Norfolk Southern run-through train, and it's got one of the heritage units on the point. I can't pronounce the name of the heritage unit. All I can tell you, it's the gray one with the big red M on the nose.
Oh, okay. So what happens? The crew gets on, and then they got to go back to the
Yeah, I think the way this trip is reading out, they're a dog catch crew. So they're going to have to bring this train in. They may or may not have to go get a second one. So it's showing 2 trips on my thing here. I'm just waiting to hear back from rail crew to see if I'm supposed to hang out here till they get back, or if I'm done, or what. So I figured I'd jump on with you guys for a while I'm waiting. So
Yeah, I can't pronounce that either, but
yeah,
CV
it's
Railroad.
that one, CV.
So if you're not needed anymore, then you're off the clock.
Once I get released, I will take this van, fill it up full of gas, and then park it for the night, and then I'm done. So,
Do you work for the railroad, or is this a contract?
well, it's more or less a contract. The company I drive for is contracted with BNSF here to haul their crews, and so it's kind of a weird situation. The thing is, BNSF actually dispatches our trips. They basically call rail crew, dispatch, or say, hey, we need a driver to do such and such, haul a crew somewhere or pick them up. Then rail crew will call the first driver on the board. They'll answer. So, so basically, if I come back on the board like at number 3, there's 2 drivers ahead of me. If they call them and they either don't accept the trip or don't answer, then I'm basically the guy that gets called to take the trip. So, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. It does. That's interesting. So, are you guaranteed a 40-hour week, or you just have?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
There may be weeks where you work 20 hours, and there may be weeks where you work 70 hours. So it's either pedal to the metal or you get nothing.
Right.
Yeah. I think there was one week where I went 8 days and worked 82 hours, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that was a pretty wild week. And
while you're checking your monitor, Andy, check the question from Adrian. I'll put it on the screen.
I don't know. I've been looking at them. I mean, I'm still a little bit curious about them, but I haven't liked things that are outside of the JMRI system. That's the problem I have. Yeah, like Chris is saying, that's my problem. If and when I ever build something outside in G scale or something, direct control from throttle or phone to locomotive, absolutely, right up my alley. I think it's a good thing those products exist. I think it's a good replacement for anybody who has a small switching layout or just a couple operators or something. But for those of us that want to operate with 3, 4, or 5 people, or use dispatchers, have signal systems, things like that. And there's things I don't like about JMRI for sure, but JMRI is just hard to replace. There's so many things it does for you. And it's very hard to live outside of that. So I've been more interested in the over-the-air DCC systems, like what Tam Valley used to sell, and is now one of the couple systems sold by deadrailinstalls.com. So, but I'm also reluctant to. Yeah, Chris mentions you can't even use the proto throttle, which I agree, and I'm all in on the proto throttle as well. I think what I'm interested in is what I've been calling dumb rail. So over the air signal with some capacitors, so you get some run time. But I don't want to deal with all the consequences of batteries. So what I want is just a straight 18 volts on the rails, so I can do current detection for signaling and all that, and current keepers or capacitors, so that I don't have to wire complex track work. But I don't want to deal with the complexities of battery and charging and life cycle, and it's just a complicated thing on a railroad my size. But they're super interesting. I mean, people should look at them. They're very interesting, and the fact that you had Blue Rail come out a few years ago that Bachman was supporting by that independent developer. That was a really interesting system as a replacement for train sets. Blue Nami coming out, being backed by soundtracks by Tsunami, is incredibly interesting, and I think it will fit a valuable niche in the hobby. Yeah, Chris, I think that's the problem I have as well, is that you need a way to interact with it systematically as opposed to one-to-one relationships. RC or an equivalent direct system fits for some people, but for anybody who's building a railroad system out with dispatchers and all that stuff, it's likely going to be difficult right now. That may improve as the years go on. Yeah, CV. People talk about that about different voltages. It depends on scale too. Depends on your decoders too. Depends on how you're fronting your decoders. Like if you have capacitors on the front of your decoders, on the front end of your supply for your decoders, whether you're running resistor wheel sets or running detection circuits. So I need about 16 and a half volts at the rail. But by the time I go through current detection and stuff, I need to start with more like 18. I may need to tune that down a bit. But so in all my experimentation so far, running 18 and then running some current detectors and all that stuff will end up with about 16 or a little more than 16 coming through the wheels. And Adrian, I don't know if I was at N scale, I would have a lot. Scale determines a lot of these things. If I was at O, it depends on the size of your layout too, the size of your equipment. If I was at O scale, standard gauge or Proto 48 or something, which I could conceivably model in, and it was the last scale I modeled in before my break of a decade or so before I got back into the hobby, was at O scale 2 rail. I would probably just commit to dead rail, because dealing with batteries is not as painful a proposition as it is at HO scale. If I was at N scale, I think I would depend on the layout doing a lot more of the intelligence for me. Like I would probably put speakers under the layout and use current detection to actually drive the sound from under the layout. I know sound at N scale is getting better, but boy, it's easy to make it sound good if you're feeding speakers from under the track, for example. And you just don't need to put as much in a locomotive. In HO scale, we're at the point where sugar cube speakers work well enough for the sound, but anything I can offload onto the layout is still an improvement. So getting batteries out of equipment would be better for me. I mean, even capacitors take up quite a bit of space. I mean, the four super capacitors that I've been wiring together in my test scenarios um, make for a little pack that's not exactly small, but it will give But four super caps will give you a runtime of a minute and a half. Yeah, Chris, they're gonna be paid for. And you really need the problem is you need long term data. You need to collect, you need to charge them and record all that stuff into like a spreadsheet, and you need to do battery monitoring so that you can determine the life cycle of batteries and know when to replace them ahead of time. And odds are, if you're gonna have a bunch of guys come over Saturday and operate, you want to go down to the basement on Wednesday or Thursday or Friday, look at a spreadsheet, power it all up, look at a spreadsheet or an output somehow and say, yeah, all my batteries are good enough. That works, but you're not going to want to check all of your, you're not going to check all your batteries to make sure that they work for you. And charging through the rails is both difficult and risky, especially if you're using lithium. So, I mean, if you go with nickel metal hydride, but nickel metal hydride have a bunch of trade-offs too. So everything's trade-offs. I mean, I've said that about our hobby in general. If you're a layout builder, model railroading is like one of those old choose your own adventure books. It's a choose your compromise. You're going to make some compromises. I mean, I'm a prototyper dyed in the wool, but you're going to compromise. So, yeah, Chris, I know you've done the research and bought the products, and got stacks of electronics that you've played with. More so than I have, and I've got a treasure trove of equipment here that I've experimented with, and that's why I've kind of decided on this dumb rail. It's just simpler. Just get the voltage through the track, get the signal over the air. None of that's incredibly difficult. That's all fairly, reasonably easy. If I was at O scale like you are, Chris, I might consider sticking with dead rail. I might. If I was at G scale or outside, for sure. Dead rail is no question. I would not wire track outside or deal with keeping the track clean enough to pass current. If I was at end scale, I wouldn't even consider any of that stuff. I would just power everything through the rails. In HO scale, it's to the point where I think the signal over the air would be an improvement, but still powering through the track. And part of that has to do with my desire to simplify the signal coming through the rails. Because right now it costs you about $15, give or take, $12 to $15 to detect a circuit because it's modulated with DCC. If you get that off and it's just straight voltage on the rails, you can occupancy detect any individual block for about 50 cents. So the cost difference in detection is significant. Yeah, end scale is always going to be a bunch of trade-offs with that stuff. The sound has got better at end scale. I mean, of course it has. Got a lot better. And it may get to the point where it's satisfactory, but you're dealing with some physics problems. There's just some simple physics problems that are always going to be a problem when the speaker has to be small enough to fit into an SD40 that's at a 1 to 160 scale. You're dealing with some physics.
Got one coming, I think.
All right.
Oh, they're stopping at the depot.
Getting an echo from somebody.
Is it mine?
I got mine muted. Yeah, it's still muted.
Well, I muted mine for a second too.
I'll be right back. I'm going to step out of the van for a minute.
All right.
CV, I'm using DCC++ or EX, the new system DCC EX. I'm not opposed to buying a commercial DCC system. I just have not found a reason to. I started out just playing with whatever that thing was called that was really popular for just as a programmer.
Okay. Well, it's a northbound, but it's not the one I'm working with.
And I built that Arduino-based system, and I just haven't found a reason to go elsewhere. It does everything, and because I'm using proto throttles, haven't found a reason to do anything else. And I love the customization. I mean, you got to be pretty geeky to enjoy messing with that stuff. For most people, buy a commercial system, but I think it has more to do these days because I don't want to run my layout with that. I would run my layout with LCC or something else. I am using something else. I'm using MQTT to run my layout, but all I want to do is drive locomotives with it. So I don't need it to be very much. For most people, buy a commercial system, buy the commercial system that your buddies use, and buy the one that you like the throttles of, the ergonomics of the throttles. With a proto throttle, it's irrelevant to me what DCC system is underpinning my system. Oh, yeah, CV, I didn't know you were running that. I love that system, man. I mean, it's dirt cheap, so I mean, it's hard to argue with. I mean, I spent more money buying, megas and network adapters and other things for it, and I've got 4 of them because I'm using them as boosters too. So it's not as cheap as you first think it's going to be, but still cheaper than buying an equivalent system of any commercial vendor. Um, and in my case, I don't need the throttles. I don't need the LocoNet. I don't need any of that stuff. It's all just extra cruft that I'd be paying for. I don't need. Yeah, Robert and Chris, who's on here tonight. Robert and Chris done that clinic on the Plus Plus system, and I'm glad they did. That was a good bit of video, and I think it started several people on the Plus Plus systems, and boy, they work like a champ.
You still working on your C-frames?
Yeah, I haven't built a new module recently. I built that bridge module because I had to carry on with the bridge construction. I've got some recent designs that I've been fiddling around with because I need to build a couple more modules to close in that C-frame for each side or the bridge module. That will make that'll make that entire front aisle completely enclosed, and that'll have 6 modules all the way around that front aisle. And then to see the other 2 parts of the layout, you kind of walk under those back to the back of the layout. But I want to get that first section kind of completed because that's one of my goals over this. By the end of this winter, I want to have trains running out onto across that bridge and out onto the branch line. Which that's not exactly how the railroad actually connects, but I'm going to in the short term, I'm going to make a connection behind the scenes that shouldn't be, and so I'll be able to run across the bridge, out onto the branch line, do a little switching, back out across the bridge, and that'll be all in that front aisle. So I'm going to build a few more of those, and I've been working on some designs for that for some of these because these next 2 C-frame designs are on because they're T modules. They're on the wall, and a section of them comes out and across the aisle. And then I'm going to redo my workshop. This room has become the collection spot for everything. As I work in the trade room, it's just ended up with, these are piled in front of my rack of equipment is all of my boxes of rolling stock boxes or set in boxes here piled up. I've got every stick of wood that I didn't need. I've stuck it through the door. I mean, it's a wreck in here, of course. So I'm going to redo that. So I've been kind of, drawing and designing and getting the measurements laid out for that. Because that's going to be one of my projects this winter too. Is buying cabinets. I'm going to buy kitchen base cabinets. Just the Lowe's fixed size cabinets that you buy that are cheap, and put them around the base and build countertops. So I want to get that in place, and I want to get trains running on the top on that front loop of that. I want to get that done over this through the winter and into next spring. Have trains running for the first time, and get the workshop in some kind of shape where I can actually do some real modeling in here. Because the problem is I just don't have enough space. Yeah, hey James. Yep. I just don't have enough space. Anywhere I go, I don't have enough space.
It's always the problem.
Yeah, I need to build a building. I mean, I held off for a long time for that because I thought I was going to build a house, which would have took a year or more, but that's going to be a few more years, But a sheet of plywood costs what a sheet of plywood costs right now. We're going to hold off a little while. So,
Oh, Mikey put a
we'd
gun
like to get
and we had Chinese food. Yeah, I'm dying now.
But I'd like to get a building. I am looking at that, and I may try to get a building come this year, which may change my plans for what I wanted to do this winter. But I
Yes.
expect I'm just going to keep moving on with as it is for now.
Yeah. So you got some crews coming in now.
Yeah, that's our only non-Toyota van that's here.
What? No, I believe that was a good show.
Hey James, how you doing?
Well, sounds like that northbound's taking off. I hear him throttling up.
Huh. Yeah, here he comes.
Now that's a sweet picture.
How did the Mets do?
They didn't play tonight.
All right.
Oh, it's a Memphis Tulsa train.
Is that 4 engines he's got on there?
Yeah, they're not all running, just 3 of them's running.
Yeah.
7718 dispatcher. New crews on, pulling up the hill.
Control 120 up. They're one of them old Santa Fe hoppers.
Yeah.
Guys, I'll catch you guys on a rebound. Johnny, Andy, Randall, have a safe night.
All right, you too, Bill. Have a good one.
All right, Bill. Have a good one.
CV, James.
Yeah, appreciate you coming in.
Hey, no problem. Glad I came in. Catch you on the rebound.
There's a Conrail car. Hey, there's a Norfolk Western car. It's got the NW stencils on it.
So that one's headed what? To Tennessee?
Be headed to Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah, those old mill gods. There's still a number of those around that never got repainted. Probably will never get repainted. They still have NW livery on them.
Oh, there's still a few cars floating around. It's got the Frisco emblems on them.
Yeah, yeah. No, they'll never
Even
get.
saw,
Most of those that are, if they're that long, they're not going to get repainted.
even saw a Rock Island car here not too long ago.
Well, the Rock Islands had a rebound. Recently I haven't followed it, but there's been a reinvestment in bringing that railroad back.
Mm-hmm.
It's been interesting to follow the guys who are trying to make that possible. Curious if they'll be successful, but I hope they are.
Southern Pacific.
I've got a little bit of Rock Island equipment. I got some SP equipment too. I really love the SP. That's one. If I modeled a Western Road, it'd be the SP.
All right, John. We'll catch you later. Have a good one. Got some auto racks in there too.
Oh yeah. These trains will have auto racks in them too. They haul a lot of steel and a lot of autos. So these northbound trains, they'll be loaded, and the southbounds will mostly be empty. So
they're bringing imports in from the Gulf, I guess, into Louisiana or Baton Rouge.
Well, they'll load a bunch of cars up around Memphis too, and unload cars. So I'd say probably. Well, I take that back. They'll probably load some up around Birmingham too. So.
Well, looks like Evel Knievel's about to leave.
Yeah, that's one of the engineers works out here. He rides that little motorcycle to work. I probably need one of those. It'd probably do a lot better on gas than what I'm driving.
Yeah.
Gas prices what they are. I've thought about buying a motorcycle again. It's been a few years since I've had a motorcycle.
Hey, Marty, how you doing?
Well, it's got a DP on it, I hear.
Yeah, I guess it is getting lunchtime, isn't it, Marty?
I don't know if they'll turn this train loose yet or not now or not.
Southern Suspension. Stop at 5898 South at CP 3351. Track, just already passing.
Yep, they're going to turn this one loose. There's another southbounder behind this one.
Hmm.
That's correct, John. That yard van that's in there, I've driven that on a trip or two. Last time I drove it on a trip, it had a busted seat in it, and they had to put a new seat in it.
Hmm.
So,
So y'all don't have a motorcycle helmet law up there?
that's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah. Didn't look like he had one on.
What state? What state is it? What state are you in?
Missouri. I'm in Missouri right
I
now.
doubt it.
I don't think they got one, but
No, Kentucky doesn't have one. Tennessee does. Kentucky does not.
it's kind of comical. Like I said, I drove that yard van there, or what is the yard van now on a long haul. It sounds like the rear end's going to fly out at about every time you step on the gas. So,
And most of those companies will run them as long as they'll keep running.
oh yeah, we got the one that we use for our extra yard van is a 2019 model. Or we got in the winter of 19, and it's already got 311,000 some change miles on it. So
Yeah.
in fact, this van I'm driving now, it's a 2022 model, and it's already got almost 76,000 miles on it. As I'm looking at the odometer, 75,791 miles, and it's
Yeah, you can rack the miles
6
up
months
on them if you
old.
keep them running all the time.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
You can rack the miles up on them. I used to put a lot more miles on vehicles, but I really haven't since we haven't picked back up as much since the end of COVID. I mean, I was putting 25, 30,000 a year on cars. I mean, just doing what I do for a living. I don't drive for a
Oh
living.
yeah.
I do IT work, and I just happen to drive from location to location. I was racking 25 and 30,000 a year, but I haven't been since 2019.
Yeah, we run the guts out of these vans. I tell you what. So.
Yeah, Marty, keep the barbecue warm. Just I guess that wasn't a barbecue that caused all the fire from the microwave. I guess you're probably safe.
Stevie, they have put that van in the shop, that the Expedition. They've put it in the shop I don't know how many times. The U joints are fine in it. We don't know what's causing it. But the only thing I can tell you is when you take off on a steep hill, it feels like the rear end's slipping in it.
Rear end or transmission?
It sounds like the rear end because it sounds like a metal on metal grinding sound, like the like it's like the gears are slipping in it or something. I don't know. It keeps running, so I guess we'll just run it till it quits. So
Yeah.
The only good thing is that van there can go places these Toyota vans can't go because it sits up quite a bit higher. Somebody's tying down a Hogan. And if you want to know where, for those that don't know where Hogan's at, that's technically Black Rock, Arkansas. So.
Well, we done gone over the 1 hour mark, so I guess we'll shut this one down.
Well, I guess that train I'm with said there's no crew for it till 2:18 in the morning. So,
Wow.
I guess they're gonna tie it down here or there when they come in. They really should be here about any minute because it's not that well. I mean, it's about an hour and a half drive from here to Bono. So.
Well, good to catch up with you, Johnny. I'll see y'all next month, or we'll have my show again before then. But
Yeah, hang around a few minutes.
Yeah.
I can do that.
All righty. Well, I appreciate everybody coming, all y'all in the
Yeah,
chat.
appreciate it, Johnny.
Yeah, Randall, Andy being on here, Bill. Maybe next time we'll get Chris to jump in on the panel.
At least we got a couple of trains on there before we left. So.
Yeah. Didn't get to see the Heritage unit come through, but.
Nah, I don't know when they'll be here, but.
Yeah, that's all right.
I'll try to get a video of it and stick it on my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
If not, some other buddies will.
All right.
Yeah, Marty, let me get you that link real quick. There you go, Marty. I just put it up on the screen so you can go back and look at it after the show's over. Discord. All right, we'll catch y'all next month. Don't forget about Bill's 2 shows there, and we'll be seeing y'all a little later. So everyone have a good night.
You guys too. Have a good one.
Yep. Let's get this.